nails all of them in an instant. He causes them to shatter, and everyone's stunned by his overwhelming power. He extends his sword and cuts the Devander in half, causing it to freeze, and it shatters along with the castle. Everyone celebrates as they realize the fight is over, and Finn is happy that William turned out better than he could ever have imagined. He tells Sadie it's time for him to make good on his pact, and notes that it took them 500 years to achieve their goal, but it's finally time for the tale of wand and sword to begin. We see Cauldron bringing William's power under control, but it seems some of his memories are altered in order to keep him stable. Meanwhile, Wertner wakes up in the infirmary, and Clary tells him he needs to value himself even if he can't die. Eliza also visits him, and she's glad to see he's fine, but Clary stops her from touching him, and they start to fight over him. Wertner suddenly asks about William, so Edward mentions that Cauldron is taking care of him, and tells him he should focus on resting instead. We see Iris giving her report about the incident to Mysterious, and we learn that 3,000 people were killed or injured. The leaders behind the attack are still unknown, so Mysterious orders for the repairs to be prioritized first. He also wonders why they didn't know about William sooner since he was at the academy, so Iris mentions that it was probably because Cauldron was hiding him until he could fully mature. Mysterious is annoyed at her deciding things on her own, but notes that the sword should be entrusted to Finn going forward. Iris wonders what Mysterious actually thinks about William, so he notes that if he's the sword from the Mage Queen's vow, everything will one day intersect. He suddenly summons the other Magia, and he tells them they need to continue the investigation into the incident. He doesn't have any leads, so the other Magia wonder if he's incompetent, but he mentions that the monsters that appeared gave him the same feeling as the heavenly destroyers that almost destroyed the world 10 years ago. Eleanor doesn't believe that the destroyers survived, since many of her people gave their lives to get rid of them. Zia wonders if she's scared, and remembers that she didn't take part in the battle 10 years ago, and he tells her to run back to her forest. Eleanor blasts him with her wind magic, but we see that he avoided it, and he prepares to fight back, but Mysterious tells them to stop. Carriot notices Sarissa listening, and Eleanor wonders where Elfaria is, since all of them were summoned, so she makes the excuse that Elfaria wasn't feeling well. Meanwhile, we see Liana as she runs into Colette holding flowers, and she turns out to be paying her respects to Rosti. Liana wonders what he was like, but Colette mentions that she didn't really know him, since he was trying to become an artificer and had different classes, so she only remembers how she was jealous when he transferred into the academy and instantly started hanging out with William. Finn watches as the city starts to be repaired, but he runs into Iris, who warns him not to interfere with William, because if he gets involved, things will be advanced, and there's a certain person that won't be able to be stopped. But Finn doesn't care, and notes that since it's graduation, Cauldron won't be able to keep William from him anymore. In a flashback to a year earlier, we see Rosti as he asks William if he would be sad if one day he were no longer around. William is confused by what he's saying, so Rosti mentions that if having to say goodbye made him sad, he wonders if it would have been better if they had never met. William can't believe he would say that, since meeting him was one of the best things that ever happened to him. Rosti mentions how he might not be able to ascend the tower together with him, hoping that he won't be sad, but tells him that he will always be watching over him. The day of graduation arrives, and everyone makes their way to the auditorium. Cauldron starts by paying respects to the people that they lost, but tells everyone that it's only the beginning, so it's their duty to carry hope for the future. The ceremony begins, and Edward calls out all the students' names as he gives them their diplomas. There are 250 who graduate, and Cauldron goes on to announce the ones who will be ascending to the tower. Liana is called first as the valedictorian, with a perfect 12,000 credit points. Wignall comes in second, while Julius is third and Shion is fourth. Other students are called, and Colette makes it through with 9,000 credit points. 49 students make it to the tower by having enough credits, and everyone cheers for them, but Cauldron notes that there's one more person who will ascend. She mentions that besides gaining enough credits, the second condition to advance to the tower is by creating a new spell, and she calls out William's courage spell. Edward tries to object, and Cauldron knows that there will be people who disagree with her decision, so she asks for the people who acknowledge William's courage as magic to applaud. Everyone stays quiet, so William thinks it's over for him, but Shion suddenly starts to clap, and all the other students follow his lead. Everyone in the hall claps for him, so William is allowed to ascend to the tower. Edward can't believe the result, but it seems he was actually worried for William, thinking he will be thrown into despair after being teased with his dream, but Wertner thinks that he'll be able to overcome what comes next. Finn can't believe Cauldron's greed of keeping William, so he decides to keep watching for the time being. Cauldron calls them the Grim Generation, and although they will face many trials ahead, she hopes for them to stand strong. The ceremony comes to an end, and we see Elfaria watching, excited that William has finally reached her. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.